November 1991. I had to check. I forgot what month I was doing. Let's see. November 1991, I turned 25. I believe I was on unemployment because I was laid off from my mason tender job. This could be the year that I worked as a janitor at the local community college during the winter, but I don't recall. But there were a few winters where I was laid off from masonry because that's summer work, good weather work. But anyway, I also read some good books. So let's just jump right in. First book I read in November 1991 was Stalkers, edited by Ed Gorman and Martin H. Greenberg. This is one of those classic 90s anthologies with authors like, see me checking my notes here, Dean Koontz, Robert R. Mccammon, Joe R. Lansdale, F. Paul Wilson, Richard Lehman, all sorts of great authors, great stories. When I looked this up to check who the authors were in this, there's a hardback on Amazon for $100. So if you can find one cheap somewhere, snag it. Next up, we have The Keep by F. Paul Wilson. Nazis and a vampire and all sorts of supernatural shenanigans. You know, it's crazy when the Nazis aren't necessarily the worst evil in a book, but it's The Keep. If you want to know more about this, you can check out my video on it in my series F. Paul Wilson's Secret History of the World. It's the first, it's the first book video. There's an introductory video that's actually first, but you know what I'm saying. The Keep, good stuff. Don't remember if this is the first or the second time I read it. I think it's the second time, but I can't be sure unless I go back in the list, and I don't feel like doing that. But there you go. Just reread it not that long ago for my video series. After that, we have No One Here Gets Out Alive by Jerry Hopkins and Daniel Sugarman. This is the biography of Jim Morrison of The Doors. I'm not a huge fan of The Doors, but I enjoy some of their music. So I thought it'd be interesting to read about a polarizing figure in the musical world. And it was quite interesting. And apparently these guys had like inside information, were involved with the Doors, knew them, whatever. You know what I'm saying. Let's move on to They Thirst by Robert R. Mccammon. I love this cover. These are the covers I want for all my Robert R. Mccammon books that have them. There's two that I don't have. But vampires taking over L.A. Great stuff. Another one that I really need to read. I need to reread all my Robert McCammons. But, man, I love these covers. They Thirst. Fantastic stuff. Highly recommended. Then we have Python Isle by Kenneth Robson, or however you say his name. But that's just a house name. This is actually written by Will Murray, who is still writing Doc Savage books. This was the first new Doc Savage in years and years and years, based on, again, written by Will Murray, based on a complete outline by Lester Dent, who I believe wrote the most Doc Savage books under the name Kenneth Robson. And apparently Lester Dent submitted the outline to the editors and they rejected it back in the day, and then Will Murray got a hold of it. This was sort of a resurgence of Doc Savage at the time. So kind of a lost Doc Savage story. Wish I still had this, but I do not. All right. Then we have The Hunter by Richard Stark. This is the first Parker novel. Parker is a thief, and he is, at the beginning of this story, he is betrayed by his wife? Girlfriend? I think it's his wife. They pull a score. She and Parker and some other people pull a score. Parker is betrayed and left for dead, and this is his story of revenge, getting back at the people that turned on him. Fantastic book. I've read it multiple times, and I'll be reading it again. I really want to go through this whole series. I've read maybe less than half, but this is where it all started. It's been made into a movie at least twice. They mention Point Blank, starring Lee Marvin, in 1967, and then Mel Gibson did one that I can't remember the name of. Payback. Yeah, Payback with Mel Gibson is the same story. I feel like there's a third one, but not sure. Anyway, The Hunter, Richard Stark. Fantastic crime thriller. So good that I followed it up with The Score by Richard Stark. Another Parker novel. Not the next one. Looks like there's three in between The Hunter and The Score. This one, Parker and his crew basically rob an entire town. On the back, it says, cleaned out the plant payroll, both banks, and all the stores in one night. But of course, things never go perfectly for Parker and his crew. But again, just all of these are just great crime fiction. Parker's such a great character. And then we have The Seventh by Richard Stark. Let's see. I'm looking. So there's only one book between The Score and The Seventh. Not that information matters at all. This one, Parker and 6 other dudes rob someplace. They all go their separate ways. Parker's holding on to the money till it's safe to distribute it. And then the money is stolen. Parker's woman, it says on the back, is murdered. And once again, as so often happens, Parker needs to find out who did it and get his revenge and get the money back and all that good stuff. What else is there to say? These books are fantastic. Then we have Rough Cut by Ed Gorman. This is apparently Ed Gorman's first novel, and there's a guy named Michael Ketchum. He co-owns the Harris Ketchum advertising agency. There's all sorts of shenanigans going on with all of the people that work there, people having affairs, people backstabbing other people, all sorts of stuff going on. And then Harris of Harris Ketchum is murdered, and Michael Ketchum is a suspect along with everybody else. Michael knows he didn't do it, so he's trying to figure out who did, and other people get murdered along the way. Ed Gorman, great writer. Don't remember too much about this one as far as how much I enjoyed it. I know I've enjoyed tons of his stuff, but this being his first novel, if that's actually the case, it could be weaker than others as far as writing goes. I can't specifically say. And then finally, in November 1991, Murder in the Wings by Edward Gorman. This is one of the Jagged Wire books, according to my research, the 4th one in the series. Jagged Wire is an ex-cop turned wannabe actor, and in this book, he and his girlfriend start investigating this theater where the director was murdered, and they got to figure out who did it. Mystery. So yeah, that's it. The Jagged Wire books are good. Most of Ed Gorman's stuff is good. And we're going to see a couple more, at least talk about a couple more in the next video. But there you have it. Those are the however many books. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books that I read in November of 1991. You know what? Oh, you know what? Here we go. All right, I have a question for this video. Since I read They Thirst by Robert R. Mccammon, what is your favorite vampire book? Novel, short story collection, I guess. We'll throw that in there. Doesn't matter. For the longest time, I was not a big fan of vampires. I can't remember if I've mentioned this before. I used to say that vampires were the Jar Jar Binks of the monster world. Excuse me. But of course, with everything else, it all comes down to how they're written. And Dracula from, pointing like you can see. Well, maybe you can. Right there is my Dracula, my lead figure of Dracula from Marvel Comics. Definitely my favorite version of Dracula. So I've come around. I'm enjoying vampires a little more than I used to. But easily, my favorite vampire novel is The Light at the End by John Skipp and Craig Spector. It used to be my favorite horror novel ever. I've read it many, many times. I need to reread it again because it's been a long time. But absolutely love that book. And since then, I've read a lot of other great vampire books. Finally read Dracula for the first time just a few years ago. But James A. Moore has some good vampire books. Of course, They Thirst. Brian Keene just came out with Teeth, a nice vampire novella. So there is good vampire literature out there. Just not a fan of the romanticized vampire. I prefer my vampires to be a little more monstrous. The Nancy A. Collins, Sonia Blue stuff is pretty good. And I got into the whole World of Darkness, Vampire the Masquerade stuff for a while. That was fun. But, so there's good vampire stuff out there. Let me know what your favorite is. Mine is The Light at the End by John Skipp and Craig Spector. So there you go. Let me know your answer in the comments below. That's it. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronin5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is... Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K. ERIKSMITH 5757. That's all I've got for you this week. So until next time, read more books.